What do you do when life doesn't go according to plan? Not when you made a mistake, not when you had a bad day. I mean when the relationship ends, when the project fails, the career path changes, or the dream you've spent years pouring into no longer feels true to you anymore. Today's guest is going to teach you how to navigate life's inevitable setbacks with more self-compassion, resilience, and maybe even a little bit more humor. Welcome to Unleash Your Inner Creative with Lauren LoGrasso. I'm Lauren LoGrasso. I'm an award-winning podcast host and producer, singer-songwriter, public speaker, and creative coach. And this show is meant to give you tools to love, trust, and know yourself enough to go after your birthright to creativity and pursue your wildest dreams. Today, I'm talking with entrepreneur, writer, and founder of Nerd Fitness, Steve Kamb. We're chatting about his new book, How to Try Again. And here's the thing, he did not write this book from the mountaintop, having figured everything out. It is written from where he was, which was in the middle of his own starting again and trying again. While writing the book, Steve navigated a divorce, a cancer diagnosis, major changes to the business he'd spent nearly 20 years building, and a complete reimagining of who he wanted to be and how he wanted to spend his life. In this conversation, we talk about how to start again after failure, why self-compassion is often more effective, always more effective in my opinion, than self-criticism, how to stop letting perfectionism keep you stuck, and Steve's amazing 4-step practical framework for getting back up when life knocks you down. We also get into how to ask for help, creative reinvention, identity shifts, the importance of putting imperfect work out into the world because you want to and it's needed, and why sometimes the goal isn't to make progress. The best way to make progress is just to stay where you are and to stay afloat. This is one for anyone who's ever felt or feels like a failure, has wondered if they should give up, or has found themselves in the middle of a life they never expected. Here's the good news. Failure isn't the end of the story. Sometimes it's where your story begins. So let's get into it. Here he is, Steve Kamb. Steve, I'm so excited to have you here on Unleash Your Inner Creative. I love your book. I love talking about how to try again, and it's just great synergy. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, we were talking earlier, this does feel very serendipitous, and I've been on quite the creative journey to get this book out into the world. So being able to talk about like that part of this is so exciting to me, and so different than most of the other interviews I get to do. So I'm just fired up to be here.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's start there because the thesis statement of this podcast is going to be to like give people tips to start again, to try again after failure. But you open the book in such a beautiful way because you start with your own journey. And I always think we teach what we most need to learn. And I love when somebody is in the arena teaching what they're learning as they're going. And that you really took us on that journey in this book. And I know in order to write the book, there were things you had to like not give up, but step away from, pause, and be really honest with yourself about who you wanted to be, like that you are this writer and this has always been on your heart and this is something you want to prioritize. So maybe let's go into that journey and then into your inciting incident for teaching on this specific topic.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll get the party started with the book. I think I literally start with something like most books start at the beginning. Like I wanted to start at the end after something has gone wrong or a failed creative project doesn't go the way that you had expected. Something happens that is unexpected and you're trying to figure out like, how do I pick up these pieces and where do I go from here? Like I had signed the paperwork to write this book way back in early 2023 because this is what I've been doing for the last 17 years of my life. I started a website called Nerd Fitness because I got super curious about health and fitness stuff. I was raised by two loving parents and a Nintendo entertainment system, as I say. And I just kind of I created this site, Fitness for the Rest of Us. And we noticed similar patterns over time of people that were struggling to follow through on their health and fitness goals. And like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. I'm a creative writer by nature, and I accidentally turned this into like a big business. So when I signed the paperwork to write this book, I said, okay, this feels right. Meanwhile, I'm sitting in charge of a company that, again, through no fault of my own, became very successful and large. And I found myself like not wanting to show up for my own job because I'm in charge of this big team and I'm spending a lot of time in meetings and I'm not doing the one thing that like got me started in the first place, just writing. So I told the company and said, hey, like something about this after a few years of trying to continue to be that person, I finally accepted to myself, like, that's not you, dude. And you're very unhappy. You need to step back and work on the book as if that is your only, like, that is your main job. So I like demoted myself to start, and then I fired myself and then said, like, this book is, dude, like, you have to treat this like the craft and honor it the way that this book is, you know, deserving of. And and then I went through a whole bunch of life stuff that happened while I'm writing this book about what to do when life doesn't go according to plan, and ended up having to write the book that I desperately needed myself, which was like, all right, things didn't go the way that you expected. Here's your hug. Let's get through this together because life is chaos and we're going to figure it out side by side.
Yeah, honestly, it was so beautiful how vulnerable you were about that because it just made me trust you more.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can't wait to dive into all that. But for someone who's listening and resonating with this story, maybe they've created a beautiful life, a beautiful company like you did, and there's something inside of them telling them, I'm being called to do something different. But in order to make that shift, they're going to have to first, you know, reevaluate their own identity and make that shift internally, then express it to other people, possibly disappointing them, go through the whole pain of restructuring and then figuring out who they are in post. Like, how did you get through that? And what would be your advice to someone who's going through a similar renaissance?
It's so hard, right? I mean, especially like I am a recovering people pleaser and there's a term called an insecure overachiever, which is like you know, you're probably the person that was like honor roll, didn't want to miss school, worked hard to get into a certain call. And like, as long as I keep doing these things, then I can be enough. I certainly have many elements of that too. So
I guess I'm going to have to join that club today.
Right.
You know, a lot of things in your book really called me out, Steve. And now this conversation, we're keeping right on track. But it's true. That's exactly how I feel. So thank you for making me feel seen.
Sure.
Yes. So you had that realization.
Right. This realization of like, well, okay, no level of success is going to make me feel enough. And not only that, but like signing the paperwork for this book deal, like was the first day of like the most I've ever felt like an imposter. Like, oh my God, don't they realize I'm just like a small version of myself, like 3 versions of me in a trench coat? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And they want me to write this book. I'm terrified, but maybe I'll just work really, 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 really hard so that I can then feel enough. So anyways, how do we navigate going from this old version of ourselves to the new version? And the way that I talk about this in the book is we've all remember the children's book, the Very Hungry Caterpillar. And you hear, you know, you open the book and it's like the very hungry caterpillar ate 5 apples and 4 strawberries and, you know, ate through 3 oranges. And then it knitted itself a little cocoon. And inside the cocoon, 2 weeks later, out pops this beautiful butterfly. And you're like, oh, that's like a really amazing, cool transformation. You think the caterpillar goes in and knits itself some beautiful little wings and it's a cozy little 2-week vacation and pops out and bam, you're transformed and this is amazing and beautiful. Nope. A caterpillar becoming a butterfly is disgusting. Like the caterpillar goes into what's actually called a chrysalis. Turns out cocoons are for moths and chrysalises are for butterflies. So it makes this chrysalis and then it kind of eats itself. And like it turns into this goo where if you open up a chrysalis at the wrong time, like caterpillar goo just kind of pours out. So it is disgusting. And then it recreates itself in the form of a butterfly and pops out 2 weeks later. So like a lot of us think, oh, change is exciting. And once you know, then you just know, and everybody around you is going to be excited about it. And they know what you're going through. So they're just going to cheer you on. And the reality is change is much more like the caterpillar soup. you're digesting, you're eating the old version of yourself. That's breaking down. You're trying to figure out what the new version of you looks like. Meanwhile, everybody around you maybe doesn't know that. Or if you're going to become this new version of yourself, that means you need to disappoint other people in your life who want you to be the old version of you. And it's really hard. It's painful. It's uncomfortable. I can tell you how I got through it is with friends and a lot of therapy and a lot of journaling and a lot of false starts and screw ups and waking up at 4 a.m. being like, what the heck am I doing? But at least directionally feeling like this is what I'm called to do. Waking up and when my brain connects two random ideas and I can throw in a pop culture reference and blend it all together and make like a new sentence that has never existed before, I will chase that feeling. Like that is life-giving to me. So once I kind of had that realization, like it was simple, like I just need to go be a writer, but it wasn't easy because there was this company, and I know we'll talk about this, but while I'm writing a book about what to do when life doesn't go according to plan, I went through a heartbreaking but amicable divorce. I also had skin cancer diagnosis. I got the good kind, as my doctor said, but it was still like, that initial brush with mortality of like, okay, yep, there is a lot happening right now. And again, this is all happening like after I had already signed the paperwork to write a book about how I'm good at helping people navigate this stuff. And then I went through a lot of it myself. So change is hard, change is caterpillar soup. And when you're going through it and feel like you're still on the breaking down process, like you're in good company. It's it's pretty gross.
Yeah, no one gets out of it. And I love that you were like, I am the best one to do this. And the universe was like, oh yeah, prove it.
Hold my beer. Yeah. Right.
Prove it with your life.
Yeah, exactly.
And you did. So, okay, I so related to everything. I mean, basically everything you said. I feel like, we really were cut from the same cloth. I had a very similar like experience, life experience in 2022 where I finally realized like, oh, if I just keep chasing success, I'm never going to be happy. And I had to go through this dark night of the soul to be like, if I never get anything I want, could I still feel enough? And my final thesis statement of the year is who I am is the best thing about me. And I can pursue my goals from a place of self-love and internal self-worth instead of seeking it out in the world.
Oh, I love that.
And I feel like your book, yes, it's giving tools to start again post-failure, but it's really giving people tools to love themselves and have compassion for themselves and enjoy the journey instead of always fighting for the destination. So really, really love that. And I think it's so important. But let's go through this 2023 breakdown, where like everything kind of got broken down in your life and you had to start again. Tell me what that was like. Like, how did you go through that journey? Did you stop writing the book during that time? Just take me into that a little bit and then how you got out of it. Yeah.
Well, and the other thing I'll share, which I'm sure lots of creators listening to this will be able to unfortunately nod their heads along with and say like, yep, I know that. I've been running this information-based health and fitness company where I wrote 1,000 articles about certain time and people read them, stumbled across them in whatever way. And that's how Nerd Fitness existed. So I'm writing this book again, What to Do When Life Doesn't Go According to Plan. And then thanks to ChatGPT, Claude, Google changing algorithms, essentially all of my content is hoovered up and then delivered answers without people needing to go to my website. So this is all going down while I got to watch as 90% of my website traffic, we're getting about 1.5 million hits a month. And that's just from people Googling random things that I happen to have written articles about. All of that just went away. And not only that, but like it wasn't any fault of mine. It just wasn't going to come back. Google, like the way the internet now works is fundamentally different. So I had to accept that, hey, this old path that you were trying to get the company and the team back to isn't coming back. Like there's no way. Not only that, but you trying to hold on to that thing is going to, it's like I'm still holding on to the trapeze swing. That's the old one. and I'm trying to reach for the new one at the same time, and I can't. Like, I had to essentially tell my team, like, guys, like, I can't fix this. We have to reinvent ourselves as a company, and it's going to be ugly, and we're going to figure out what this new version of us looks like. But it's like post internet almost. Like, who are we, and what does this look like afterwards? Meanwhile, I'm dealing with the personal stuff. All of this is happening simultaneously. So how did I get through it? I did something that I wasn't very good at up until that point, and that was asking for help. I reached out to some of my best friends and said, like, hey, just a heads up, like, here's what I'm going through. I know this is weird, but like, I just kind of need you to know, and I just want to talk about it. And I'm very fortunate that I had some friends that were like, one, why did you wait to tell me? And two, like, we have a guest. Like, do you just want to come stay with us for as long as you need to? And I was like, I do, because I would love to do that. And then said the same thing with my brother and his lovely wife, and their kid was like, hey, here's what's going on. Can I come out? Can I come out and visit you? Kind of open-ended. And they were just like, absolutely. So personally, I leaned on a lot of friends and family. Professionally, I leaned on a lot of other content creators, friends of mine whose websites were also getting just absolutely decimated by creations of Google and ChatGPT and whatever. So there was this shared experience professionally with other people who were going through the same thing. So we could kind of not commiserate, but really navigate it together. And then personally leaned on some friends. Again, through this, I'm journaling. I'm giving myself, started going to therapy again. The book almost became therapeutic for me, or meditative in some ways. Where like that was the life jacket that I could kind of jump back into when things felt really chaotic. Like, hey, I know today sucks, or you're really feeling low today and not feeling great about yourself. So like, let's spend an hour writing about that and putting yourself in that position. Like, maybe through all of this, you can create a book and something that years from now, when it actually gets a chance to come out, can help some other people that are maybe also feeling like failures and full of shame or guilt and are struggling and don't know kind of how to navigate it. Like, hopefully this book can be that playbook for them too, as you said earlier, with self-compassion, with navigating guilt, shame, when things don't go the way that you kind of expect. Like, what does that mean? How do we navigate that? And that's like, I kind of fueled this, like, it sucks now. And I also am very clear in the book. I say, I don't know what the future holds for you. This is not I got through it and so can you. Like, I'm one of the luckiest people on this planet. I was born on third base. I've never had any chronic health issues. I am very fortunate. So instead, I want the book to be like, hey, I'm still figuring it out. And if you are too, there might be some things in this book that might be able to help you, but I can't promise you things will get better. Instead, I can hopefully teach you how to tread water during this chaos so that we can figure out at least, what tomorrow might bring for us. And then we can deal with that then.
Right. And by the way, that's the only kind of teacher we should trust. Like, if someone's coming like, I've got the silver bullet and you will never feel pain again, you should run. That person is scary and they're a liar. Okay. Yep. And there are a lot of people on the internet giving a version of that sounds very inspirational, but what they're really saying is what I just said. So watch out for people.
As long as you buy their course or supplement or whatever. Yep.
That's another thing that ran through the whole book. Like, even when you were talking about nerd fitness, it's just all so honest. And that's just so refreshing in 2026.
Thank you. I wish it wasn't such a commodity in short supply.
Same, but thank you for being one of the suppliers. It's very important.
Thank you.
You talked about how this book really was therapy for you and you poured into it and it was so personal because you were going through it as you were writing and sharing as you were learning. And you also talk about in the book how you did ask trusted allies, creative allies is what I call them, in your life for feedback and the pain and importance of that process. A lot of people are afraid to ask for feedback because it can be wounding, especially to the ego when you love something so much and somebody's being like, I don't think you're right there yet. Tell me about that process and why you must go through it with people that actually are in your corner.
So I fill this book up with a lot of references and studies around like improv comedy, stand-up comedy, creative writing, screenplays, art, music. Like that's, again, like I said, like that's me. And then I accidentally started this health and fitness company, like because I just liked helping people, and it worked. It worked too well for a while, and I got so coming back around to this as I'm writing this book and studying, you know, the art of stand-up comedy. You know, I keep stumbling across, you know, story after story after story of comedians who are essentially saying like, jokes, we don't tell jokes because they're funny. We tell jokes until we find the humor in them. And the only way they know what is working is by getting actual feedback from an audience. So go into any open mic night on a Tuesday, and whether it's New York City, you're in Nashville at Zanies, wherever you are, and you're going to see a lot of comedians tell some really bad jokes that bomb. And you hear crickets. I don't know where they get all these crickets to be in every one of these comedy centrals, but they, you know, it's okay that, you know, they say, is this anything? And then they try it again the next night, but they change it a little tiny bit. And that continues until they find the humor. That's exactly how I write. I don't write when I have an idea. I write until I find a good idea. And I think as I was writing this book, there was a part of me, that perfectionist, that insecure overachiever, that person who was like, it's not good enough to share with other people. It has to be great before I can get feedback, which is like the exact opposite of how this actually works. So I'm getting closer to where I think I have not a final draft, but closer to a draft that I thought was pretty good. And I started sending it to some people, and they sent feedback that was like, this section works. And I'm like, yeah, they get it. And then this section didn't work. And I'd be like, you don't know what you're talking about. And realizing like, okay, that was my wounded ego being like, oh, they don't understand this. No, it's because I didn't write that section well. So thinking like a stand-up comic, it was put your uncomfortable, half-finished work in front of trusted advisors and accept their feedback with open, like they're not doing this to be mean, dude. They're doing it because they want the book to be better, which is why you sent it to them in the first place. And there was a moment where I was hanging out with a good friend named Tim, and I said, gosh, I just can't figure out, like, does this chapter go here? And does this story from this chapter? And I spent months like with Post-it notes and cards, like moving the sections around and trying to make it work. And I'm like, I don't know. So I finally asked him. He's like, dude, you know, we have like a mutual friend that is really unbelievably good at like cutting through the noise on this stuff, right? Oh yeah, Josh. Reached out to Josh. 36 hours later, I'm on a flight out to Colorado to hang out with Josh. He's cooking dinner. I'm playing video games with his kid. And then he sits down and reads the book, and he's like, oh, I got it. Yeah, this goes here. This goes here. This part, you're trying to sound like another famous author. That's not you. The rest of this is Maximum Steve, and this is you. And dude, it's enough. I'm like, oh, I wish I had done this months and months and months earlier. But it took me forever to finally work up the courage to ask other people for help. And in each instance, my only regret across all of it was, I wish I had done this sooner. I have people that are in my court who are also rooting for me and are really good at this stuff. And like, if I trust their opinion, then I need to trust that I can give them something that's not perfect, which nothing ever is, and trust that they will then come back to me and say, this part works, this part needs a little bit of adjustment, and this is actually what you think you're talking about this, but really it's about this. I'm like, yes, just like a crowd in a stand-up comedy, you know, at a stand-up festival.
How do you tend to the part of yourself that wants to fight people on their notes? Because it will come up. Like, how do you talk that piece of you down and say like, yeah, just I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, so I did a lot of work, like I said, as I know you have as well, on self-compassion. You know, stumbled across the work of Dr. Kristen Neff and just really loved her work around this. And then kind of digging into like some neuroscience, but essentially realizing like the voice in my head, I am not we are not the same. We are not one and the same. Those thoughts that come in, like my brain is actually more like a satellite dish, and it's just receiving thoughts all day long, most of which I'm not choosing to be there. So I actually gave a different name to the voice in my head. His name's Chaz. He's got a ferret. He's a weird dude, but like he means well, right? Like he means well. He flies off the handle. He talks way too much, and like I don't fault him for this. He doesn't know any better, but like I don't have to take all of Chaz's advice. And in this instance, he'd be like, "They don't know what they're talking about." Like, I don't know, dude. 4 people all said the same thing, or 10 people said they loved this part and were very confused by this part. If Stephen King says you have to kill your darlings in order to get some of your work across the finish line, like maybe this part that you're going to cut out now, it's never wasted material. That might end up in the next book or in another essay. It's just not right for the story you're trying to tell right now. So it's a lot of compassion for those thoughts that are in my head of either not good enough or they don't know what they're talking about, or, you know, it's like really that kind of fragile part of me, which being creative and putting it out in the world is really scary. So I had to like put some systems in place and then still allow myself, when I get the email back, I'm like, oh, I don't know what they're talking about. And I'll go for a walk or I'll give it a day. And then I'll read it with fresh eyes 2 weeks later or a week later. And I'm like, yeah, they're right. Yeah, I know. I was trying to cram it in. Yep, I was trying to cram in one more reference to Lord of the Rings, and it was just not working. It didn't belong there. So I think putting some distance too between me and the project so that it's not so fresh. Like then I'm also able to evaluate it with a much more rational lens too, I think.
Those are such great tips. And then you mentioned something also about it is enough. And this is also something you talk about in the book, just building peace around the fact that we will never be done, that the to-do list will never get finished, that you could always go back and iterate 15 more times on your book. But at some point, you do have to be at peace with what it is, where you are, and it has to be enough. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah. I think I talk about this comparing like avoidance versus acceptance. And we all have lists of things we want to do, or the high expectation we have for ourselves that something must be a certain level of whatever it is. There is like the Fantasyland version of it in our head, which is like not real, but perfect. And then there was the actual reality of the words we've had to put on the page, the video that we're editing, the the music that we're, whatever it is, like no version of reality will ever match the fake version in our heads because the fake version doesn't exist. So as we're trying to edit it more and more and more, at some point there are diminishing marginal returns, right? And then also, I think there's a lot of us that use, I just need to do one more version or another edit or one more thing. It's like a procrastination from the fact that this is about to come out and people are going to have opinions on it. And that is terrifying. So it's way easier to tell ourselves we need another 6 months, or we just have to keep tinkering because over here it is not real. It hasn't been shared with the world yet, and that is safe. And then there is the uncomfortable reality. There's this great quote from Seth Godin. He says something like, "Be judged or be ignored." And I remember I remember that quote from, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, maybe. And just remembering of the fact that like, you wrote this book to help people, right? You can only help them if it's available. And at some point, dude, like the publisher already loves it. You can't, like, they're ready for this to come out. I'll give you another 3 months or whatever it is, but like, fine, man, put the little bells and whistles in there and keep tinkering with these sentences. But at some point, like, it will never be perfect. You need to make it the most Steve version of this as possible, and trust in the fact that you have been working on this for years and you've had people test read it, and you trust their opinion probably more so than your own because they've been removed from the project, excuse me. All of this is signaling like maybe we have something here and more tinkering is not going to help you anymore. So there is some level of, yes, like taking something from an A minus to an A has like really outsized returns in the creative process, especially when you're trying to stand out amidst whatever this chaos is in 2026. And then also you have to be honest with yourself and ask the question, like, am I tinkering because I think there is like another, like there's a slightly better, there's an A version of this? Or are you tinkering because you're afraid to finally put it out into the world? That's where the journaling and the therapy and the friends and all of this is like, know thyself and accept that, yeah, you're probably distracting yourself from the fact that like you're just afraid of putting this out there.
Oh my gosh, so good. I love this quote. You wrote this book to help people, right? You can only help them if it's available. And I think that is such an important thing for any creative listening. Like, if you can remember your why and know that you can only achieve that why if you put the thing out into the world, it may help you put the thing out into the world.
Yeah, well, not only that too, but I think there is this romanticized view of the creative process, which is like, make it for yourself and make it, and like you are your first customer, and like that is true. However, like I got paid to write a book to help people, and I am not writing, like it ended up being the book I also needed myself, but I wanted to help people, which means I needed to get people to read it to make sure that it was helpful to them. And I couldn't just be like, well, they don't understand my creative process, or that'd be like going up on stage and telling a bunch of bad jokes and then saying like, oh, the audience sucked. Like, no, dude, you just weren't that funny. And if that's the case, like, are you doing this for yourself? Okay, fine. You can stand up and bomb every night. Or you can say like, are you doing this to make a career out of it, to make people laugh? Because if that's the case, the universe is giving you signals, right? There are lessons that it is trying to teach you, and there are very real feedback coming in from real people saying, this works, this doesn't, loved this part, confused by this other one. Amazing. Lean into that, because if you're trying to take this seriously as a profession, like treat it like a profession. And also, you can only make it a profession if it's available for people to buy at some point too. So like it at some point it has to come out. We can't just tinker for 30 years and then our genius is going to be obviously available to everybody. Like that's not how this works anymore. I don't know if it ever worked that way, but certainly not these days.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's such an important reminder. Hi, creative. If listening to this conversation is stirring something up in you and you're realizing you want support bringing your own creative vision to life, I would love to help. In my creative coaching practice, I work with artists, entrepreneurs, leaders, multi-passionate humans, and people in the middle of major life transitions who know that there's something inside of them that they want to express, but they need help to get unstuck, get clear, and actually start moving. Whether you're trying to start a project, make a career pivot, reconnect with your creativity, or trust yourself more deeply, this is the work we can do together. My approach blends creative strategy, mindset, and deep inner work. So we make the project, but you're not just making things. You're also becoming more fully yourself in the process. If that calls to you, I would love to connect. You can book a free 15-minute discovery call at laurenlograsso.com or by emailing me, lauren.lograsso@gmail.com. Okay, back to the show. And speaking of the way you help people through this book, I love your PACT framework on the steps to take after failure. Would you mind going through that and sharing it?
Yeah, everybody loves a good framework, right? Like 4 letters, you're going to remember it. Like, all right, what did Steve tell me to do? Okay. So it's, you make a pact with yourself. So pause, accept, change, try. I think a lot of people have a all or nothing mentality when it comes, whether it's whatever they're trying to start a new creative habit or a fitness habit, whatever it is. Like everybody loves their all or nothing. They read once, like how you do anything is how you do everything. And they're like, cool, I'm going to hit this with 100% of my energy. I'm going to be flawless. I'm getting up at 4:30 and I'm going to journal. Then I'm getting in the ice bath. Then I'm going to write the great American novel. And I will just be, not only have I never displayed this level of discipline in my life, but somehow magically I will have it tomorrow. Like that's not how this works, right? So people move through this loop of they go all or nothing, which is always all, then nothing, and they beat themselves up. Why can't I stick with this plan? Dude, nobody can stick with that plan, right? Like, we need a different strategy. And that's where the PACT framework comes in. Step one, pause. Take a breath. Is this a thing you actually want? Are you on the right path? Is your life so crazy right now that you would actually be much better off just like kind of treading water for a while? So I think a lot of people just skip that step. They forget to just ask the question, do I want this thing? Is this what I want to be doing? Do I have the time and the space and the energy for it? So you have pause, and we have accept, which is, again, we're thinking about like that creative, or rather like that perfect imagined version of life in our heads. And then there's the messy reality with, unfolded laundry piled up on the bed, and we forgot to change the sheets. And then the dog throws up and your kid forgets to do whatever. Like, yes. Expecting reality to be any different than that is not doing us any favors. So we need to accept compassionately whatever our actual reality is. If we're not morning people, stop trying to make yourself into a morning person. Maybe there are tons of writers who are amazing night owls who love editing at other times. Or if you write and you only have, you don't have uninterrupted hours, like, oh man, I can't make it. Or I can't make this work because I can't move to a cabin in the woods and write my novel. Like, most people can't. And also, Agatha Christie, who has written and one of the most successful, selling authors of all time, never had like her own writing room. She was like, oh, I would just kind of move away in bits and spells and bursts, and I would write for 30 minutes here and there. And that's how I wrote. Like, oh, okay, well, here's an example of somebody that didn't also move into a cabin in the woods, but was still pretty successful. So like, what is your reality? Accept that. Amazing. Now we have change. Change is easy. Well, change is simple, not easy. Excuse me. Change is simple. What are we going to do differently this time compared to what we did last time? If you just try again, as the saying goes, you'll probably just fail again because you did the same thing that you did last time that didn't work. So like, thinking of it like a scientific experiment, like, what are we going to test differently this time? Maybe you tried journaling in the morning and now you're going to try journaling at night. Maybe you tried meditating in this particular structure and that didn't work for you. Cool. Let's try a meditation app, or let's sign up for a meditation course. As long as you're trying something differently with this mindset of like, I'm going to see if this works for me. Awesome. That gives us a chance. And then the last one, T, try. Don't be afraid to start ugly. We are going to make some weird experiments and we're going to see what works for us. And when we try, life is going to give us all sorts of feedback as to what is working and what's not. And we can kind of pivot based on that feedback and the lessons that are coming in. So whenever we feel like we're going around this loop, again, all or nothing becomes all then nothing. Pause, accept, change, and try.
I love the pause part so much. And I think it's one that very few of us feel we are entitled to do or that we should do, especially living in a culture that is obsessed with productivity and what are you producing and are you enough? And the only way to prove that is through your output. Why is this step so important and powerful? Let's start there.
Yeah. What we've found a lot over the years is what feels like a motivation problem is actually a resources problem. There are so many parents that are carrying the invisible load for their entire household, and they are working a full-time job. And then they're like, gosh, why can't I just also build this completely new workout habit? Damn, dude, like, you're juggling chainsaws right now. Like, no wonder why this is so hard. You're playing life on legendary difficulty right now. Like, one, stop beating yourself up that you don't have the motivation to magically want to go build this completely new habit after dealing with everything that's happening at home and a crappy work-life balance that is whatever's happening in 2026 is not great. How do we navigate that? And that's where this pause, the the analogy I came up with is I think everybody likes to make progress. Humans, it makes us feel good. We're moving towards a goal. We are building our streak of not missing a day of whatever it is. Like, we love that feeling. And when we stay where we are, we feel like we're falling behind, right? Oh, if we're not making progress, if the company is not getting bigger, if the number on the scale is not going down, or the amount of weight that you're lifting is not going up, then we are failures. We're neglecting like multiple other paths that are way worse than staying where we are. So one, if progress is moving in this direction, like regression is moving in the opposite direction, away from our goals, or like giving up and failing, which I think a lot of people do too. So compared to those two alternatives, like treading water and staying where we are and staying afloat is like the second best the second best thing we can be doing right now. You just have to give yourself permission to say like, yeah, things are crazy right now. I maybe don't have time to go do a full workout, and I don't have time to go to the gym, or I only have time to journal half a page today. Like this is like life preserving for you to like strategically half-ass what you're doing. Not because magically tomorrow things might get better, but instead like you're proving to yourself like, hey, I can stay afloat today, and then tomorrow we're gonna tread water again and stay afloat. And the good news about treading water is like I looked into like humans can like the scientific, or rather the world record for treading water is like over 3 days, I think. And I tell this crazy story about this accidental surfing incident in the book about this guy that falls off the side of a boat in the middle of the night and has to tread water for a lot longer than you'd expect before he was rescued.
Because he was throwing up, by the way. So if you ever have to throw up on a boat, just do it in the toilet. Honestly, that was my greatest takeaway from the whole book. I'm like, I just saved my life.
There you go. Look at this. I'm helping you in the future. You'll be like throwing up in some boat toilet, and you'll be like, I remember that Steve guy. He told me about PACT, and P was for puke. Was that it? No, that's not it.
At least I'm not dead right now. No.
Yes. Right. So yes, treading water and like allowing yourself to be okay with just like, I think the way I think about this too is like, stop trying to win, or like stop beating yourself up that you're not winning, and instead like just don't lose. And if you're still here and you're still floating, like I'll share like I've been floating for the last 4 years while writing this book, while navigating a chaotic like reevaluation of like my life and my business and what my days are going to look like. So it has been a lot of strategic half-assing, but I am more than okay with that, because I knew eventually, like, hey, do the best that you can to stay afloat today. Let's get to tomorrow. And then maybe it could be weeks, months. In my case, it was years. I finally found some space to maybe start making a little bit of progress again. Meanwhile, I now have this cool book. As we said earlier, the only way this book can help people is if it is actually out, which meant I had to prioritize this over a lot of other parts of my life, which was very different for me compared to how I had been previously living.
Yeah. And that part reminded me of something we often talk about on the podcast, which is that rest is part of the creative process. If you never take a moment of silence, or just even a few days after you put something out into the world, it's really hard to make enough space for new ideas to come in and then get cultivated within you and pushed out again. So yeah, pause is so powerful, and it's something hopefully we can all start baby stepping up toward more, because it's really necessary as a human and as a creative.
Yeah, well, again, it requires, I talk about this from the perspective of like, you can declare sometimes, also in this book, like sometimes things don't work out, right? Mm-hmm. Businesses don't come back, relationships end. Some people, you get diagnosed with a chronic health illness or whatever, or somebody in your family does, and like things are irrevocably changed. And holding yourself to a past standard or an expectation is not doing you any favors. When things are chaotic, after you forgot to throw up in the toilet on the boat, and you throw up and you fall over the side of the boat, like expecting things to be different is not doing you any favors. You need to declare expectation bankruptcy. And like, think of this from the perspective of Michael Scott in The Office, walking out and saying, I declare bankruptcy. Like, that's how you should be thinking about those past expectations that you've had for yourself, if those things are not coming back, or while things are crazy, like it's not helping you stay afloat if you're piling all of that onto your shoulders still. So like declare that bankruptcy, take a step back, ask yourself, like, how do I stay afloat today? And then once you can either swim or you get this project out, like you said, taking a pause, resting, giving yourself a break, finding out, even say like, I think my best work on this book probably came while I was going on walks. I would write and then I would go for a walk, or I would be stuck and I'd step away from a few days, and my brain, unbeknownst to me, would be working on it in the background, and it would recall some random idea or thought or book I had read previously, and it would solve it. But it required me to move or to get away from the book and to stop like freaking out about it and to slow down. It'd be like a fun meditative walk. I'm not out there power walking, much more of like a look at the birds and think about existence kind of walks. And that's where a lot of the connections started to happen.
Yeah. And I mean, the next in your list is accept. I love this. I mean, because you spoke about the to-do list. This was a part where I felt very called out.
Me too. As I was writing it, I was like, I was writing it for myself. Yeah.
I loved it. But yeah, like how, I don't know. That's something I've been working on a lot lately, is realizing I'm never going to be done. Like I am always going to feel like there's one more thing I could have done. And it's true. And I have to be okay with some things being unsettled. And I know that logically, but it's not like fully in my body and in my heart yet.
Yep.
Where are you at on that journey? And what are your tools that you're using to get to places of acceptance?
Oh, dragged kicking and screaming towards acceptance. This is where therapy, reading a lot of conversations, and really kind of getting my ass kicked repeatedly made me realize that like there is no productivity system that will allow me to get it all done. There's a great author by the name of Oliver Burkeman who I reference in the book, but just specifically talking around the idea of like, congratulations, you will never get it all done. Not only that, but like even if you spent your entire life just consuming content, you could never read all of the best books. You could never watch all of the great movies. Like there is too much amazing stuff out there. So like relinquish the idea that all you're missing is a better productivity system. Relinquish the idea that like, oh, if I just time blocked my schedule slightly better, then I could get it all done. Like it's impossible because there is no shortage of things to do. So if that's the case, the only alternative is acceptance. And there is a big distinction between acceptance and I think resignation. Resignation is I sit down and give up. Acceptance is seeing clearly this is the reality of the situation. And there's actually the type of therapy called dialectical behavioral therapy, which is DBT, started by a doctor named Dr. Marsha Linehan, I believe. Barbara Linehan. I apologize to Dr. Linehan. I'm blanking at the exact moment. But the idea is essentially allowing your brain to hold two contradicting thoughts in your head at the same time. It is impossible for me to do everything. And also, like, there are still things that can be done, right? It is, things may feel hopeless, and yet I am determined to make them otherwise, to borrow a quote from, I think it's F. Scott Fitzgerald. Like, you never will get it all done, but that doesn't mean there's nothing to do. It just means you need to find ways to be at peace with, I need to do the things that I'm capable of doing today, and accept that it doesn't matter how much I do, there will always be more to be done in the future. So that means you have to start prioritizing, which is so hard because there is some version of this that, like, if you assume that there's a magic system you're missing out on, you never really have to decide on when to prioritize your writing project or the career change you want to make. We really avoid that uncomfortable discussion with ourselves because it's a lot easier to say, like, well, no. I just need one more year or another 2 years of organizing things a little better, but then I'll start my book. Or, oh, I can't change careers now. Like, what if this happens or what if that? And the reality is, like, life is happening now. Those changes probably, if you leave it up to yourself without making any mental changes, they're never going to happen because it's really easy to avoid the really uncomfortable conversation that you need to have with yourself that you probably know is happening in your head already. You're just not letting it happen because it's really scary and, like I said earlier, uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I love change because something I've noticed I do a lot of is I ask the same question of myself, like, why is this happening? Why me? Why am I not doing better? But then I never actually seek to answer it and solve for it. And it's something I've tried to do more of, but I love that you actually like broke down the steps in this for how to do an experiment of your life of why didn't that go the way I wanted it to? And then all the way through, this is how I'm going to try it differently the next time. Would you mind going through your experimentation steps and sharing with people?
Sure. So I think about change from the perspective of two different and unexpected professions. So one is like, picture Sherlock Holmes or Nancy Drew, or you're playing the board game Clue, and you see on the floor like a chalk outline of your past attempts to change or your past attempts to follow through on something. And you think of this from the Clue perspective, where it's it's not Colonel Mustard in the ballroom with the revolver. It's more like, oh, I tried to change too much, work sucked, and I picked a new workout plan that I don't actually like. Like, turns out I hate running. Awesome. We have a motive. We have the cause of death. We have we have all of these. We have the information as curious detectives to determine like why it didn't work last time. And don't worry, that version of you is dead. This is non-judgmental. We're not going to pass judgment on this old version of us. That person doesn't exist anymore. So what do we do now? Based on all of that information, we can be like scientists. So we take off our Sherlock Holmes hat, put on our lab coats, and we say, like, I'm going to conduct an experiment. And my hypothesis is, like, I hated running, but maybe if I go to this fun dance class with my friend, that sounds pretty interesting. That sounds different. I'm going to try that. Or, hey, I'm scared to go to yoga, but it turns out they're doing puppy yoga at the animal rescue right now. I like puppies, and yoga suddenly feels less intimidating when there were cute puppies running around. That's an experiment I would like to try. So you're thinking of this from the perspective of, I don't know what the outcome is going to be. I have a hypothetical guess, and based on my past experiences, I can make an informed guess as to what could be different this next time. Let's put a time limit on it, 30 days. Let's try waking up a little bit earlier and see not only if it works, but if it works for us. Like, it doesn't matter what the most optimized morning routine is if you don't want to get up in the morning. It doesn't matter what the most optimized workout. The most optimized workout is the one that you actually do. The best diet is the one you can actually follow most of the time. And like, the best productivity or creativity hack is the one that works for you. Like, I couldn't write like Agatha Christie, but I also couldn't write like Neil Stephenson, who is this great sci-fi writer he says, I need 4-hour blocks of uninterrupted time. And that's how I write my unbelievable science fiction novels. Like, I don't have those two things, but I have found a system that works for me. And that was done through experimentation and then trying things out without expectation, with relinquishing, like I said, you can declare expectation bankruptcy. You can pre-accept any outcome, and then we narrow the focus to just doing the experiment and seeing if it works for us. If it does, great, keep doing it. And if it doesn't, amazing. We now have more information as to something that doesn't work for us. We can move right through that cycle again, pick something different, and try again.
I love it. It also reminds me of this thing you said where it's important to pick the right metric. Like, it shouldn't be that every day you're just like, I need to read a book, and then you hate the book and you suffer through the book, and then you know why? Who are you helping? So I know you had a more eloquent way of saying it. Of
That's
course,
pretty great.
Really,
I like it. Yeah,
it resonated with me because it's like people make these arbitrary goals based on like what they think they should do instead of what they actually want to do and what works for them.
Can I share a really funny story about this?
Yeah, please.
Okay, I had the goal of meditating. So I downloaded a meditation app, and it was this, you could earn like little badges, like 1 day in a row or 3 days in a row or whatever. And I got hooked on the metric of checking off the fact that I meditated that day so I could fill up this little bar. And eventually I got to 6 months, and I earned this little brain badge, or I don't remember what it was, but I was like, cool, I did it. Like, I just wanted to get to this thing. There were so many days and they were like, I didn't meditate. I would just go into the app and turn it on. And so that I could keep the streak going. Like, I completely lost the plot, right? Like, show me as I think Charlie Munger said, like, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. So for me, the incentive was like, earn this badge. It wasn't like, sit with your thoughts and sit with your breath more often than not. And then I missed one day. And because I missed one day, all of a sudden my streak was gone. And I thought, like, well, that's never going to I don't think I meditated again for like 3 years after that, because the idea of having to be perfect for 6 months to get an even longer streak again, when like the reality was I meditated 180 days out of 181 or whatever, 175 days out of 108, whatever it was. Like, I don't know, dude, that's pretty good. Like, the goal wasn't to keep the streak alive. The goal was to sit with your thoughts and sit with your breath and set aside time for yourself to like be here now. And instead, I had been so excited about the wrong incentive. And as a result of that, I completely lost the point of why I was doing it in the first place. And only lately have I come back around to like sit on a cushion with my breath more often than not when I'm available, on some, and if I miss it some days, like, okay, just do it the next day, dude. It doesn't need to be more than this. Like, yeah, you missed it. Okay, just do it the next day. Nobody cares. It doesn't matter. It's totally fine.
That is so important. It's such a great story. It also reminds me of Duolingo.
Oh, that owl, man. That
owl shames the shit out of me. It's like, don't you want to be like your friends who have had 180 days in a row? I'm like, I'm happy for Brianna, but I'm on my own journey with Italian.
Yep. Which is really funny also. My book is getting, the Italian version of it is coming out in 2 weeks too.
I'll send it to my cousins.
I just saw the cover yesterday. I don't speak Italian, so I need to learn Italian very quickly because it will be in Italian bookstores in a few weeks too, which is so fun. Oh my gosh.
Huge congrats. I've got a lot of cousins in Sicily, so I'll send it to them.
That makes me so happy. Yeah, so it's and the cover, it's like, I call it a chaos pasta. Like, it's got like this red line and then it's like a bunch of squiggles and then the line comes out and this little stick figure guy. Like, they did this whole new design for it. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. Like, this never happened to me before. So I just got this cover like 2 days ago. So I'm still so jazzed about it.
I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
Yay. Ciao.
I know, right?
Oh my gosh, there's so much we could go into. I can't believe we're already almost to the end here. I just do want to say one thing about try, because this again is something we talk about on the pod a lot. I think is so necessary in order to unleash your creativity. And you talk about something that I call the art of being bad at something, but it's allowing yourself to suck when you start, and it's okay. Why is that so important? To just get a draft out, to try to get in the arena.
Yeah, it's so cliche, right? But you can't edit a blank page. And it's really hard to get better at a guitar or playing guitar if you've never strummed a bad chord. So in the book, I call it Start Ugly, and like essentially give yourself permission to lower the bar so much that like you're not trying to make something ugly or sound bad, but like allowing it to happen, because if you don't, that version of it in your head will just continue to build up of like, oh, it's not perfect. And the way that you see it, that voice in your head is saying, no, you need to do a lot more research. No, you don't. You're going to learn so much more if you just get started with it. Like, the speed with which you learn through failure and trying new things is so much quicker than like if you were to just research for another 6 months, 12 months. Like, you just learn through doing on so much of life. And unless you're like, open heart surgery or rocket science, like, it's probably okay to try something and be a little bad at it. That's how we're going to get good. But you just have to give yourself permission to start ugly, and then you can make it great after that. Very much like I was talking about earlier with stand-up comedy. That's so many versions of so many things that I love. You can find early versions of them online, whether it's old screenplays of movies that I love, earlier versions of artworks, or earlier versions of movies before test screen, like whatever it is. There are so many versions out there that are terrible, and they never would have got to the masterpiece that they became without going through those initial very ugly early first drafts.
Yeah. And if you're doubting this, look up, well, read Steve's book, but also look up Star Wars trajectory. I had no idea until I read that in your book. I mean,
It
it
was
did
so
sound
bad. The first draft was,
crazy.
oh
And
my
then
God.
hearing that it got rejected so many times, it's very encouraging for any creative to know you don't have to be perfect when you start.
Yeah, I mean, I went through 20 drafts of my book, I think. I think I finished the first ugly draft in about 3 months, and I was like, this is terrible. And it was. It was terrible, but it was out. And that's kind of the way that my brain operates. I think some people maybe operate better with an outline or they edit each line as they're going. I was much more of like, I have to get this out of my system. And also, if I let this build up in my head, the start will feel so insurmountable that I'll never get around to it. I need to get this out, and then we'll edit, and refine over time after that. And that's the only reason this book ended up getting across the finish line.
So good. For someone who's listening, who's feeling like a failure right now, or feels like their life hasn't gone where they want it to go, what is the beauty of being in that moment? And what's the first thing they should do to try again?
So I start the book with a chapter on failure because I think, and like the definition of failure, I went to visit the Museum of Failure. I spoke to a professor whose name is Teresa McPhail, and she teaches a class on failure. Like, I really dove deeply into this, and the lesson I think I would ask, or rather the piece of advice I would give, the final exhibit in the Museum of Failure is this blank wall, or rather started blank, but there's stacks of Post-it notes. And they encourage you to write one of your failures on the Post-it notes and put it up on the wall. So by the time I arrived, there were thousands of Post-it notes up on this wall. Some of them said 3 failed businesses, 2 failed marriages, cut my own bangs. One of my favorite one was I farted in yoga. Like, people were just putting up like these failures. And I'm looking at this wall, and it made me realize a few things. One is like, it made me feel better, and not in like at least I didn't have that type of failure, but much more in like okay, like, we're humans, therefore we fail. And also, my failures aren't that unique. They are not unsolvable. And like, I probably don't need to beat myself up nearly as much as I am just because something didn't work out. Some of the failures, sure, were, partly my fault. Other failures, like, through no fault of my own. So I see this wall, I see all of these failures, and I felt like strangely connected to the human race of like, hey, we're all a bunch of failures together. Like, this is kind of awesome. And the other thing I took from it is like, I had to share my failures. I think it took me a long time after navigating these past few years before I finally told my audience and said, hey, this is what I'm going through. And I don't know what's on the other side of it, but I just kind of feel like I need to talk about it. And then it took me about 13 or 14 drafts of the book before I finally put my failures on the second page of the introduction. So in doing that, the amount of emails I got from other people, of not only of support, but then saying like, oh, thank God you said it, here's what I'm currently failing at, was like, oh, all right, cool. We're all broken, but we're all kind of broken in an interesting way, and we can all kind of work on this together, was really helpful. So the advice I would have for that person would be to like, don't keep it trapped. Don't cram it down. Don't hide from the shame or the guilt. Like, really work through that. Share it with somebody. Share it with others. I even built a wall of failure on like a website for it. So if you go to howtotryagain.com/fail, you can see other people who have added their own failures too, of like, hey, we're all in this together. We all fail. What you have failed at, there have been millions of people that have probably failed in similar ways. So like, let's get through this together, and we'll get on the other side of it. So I think that would be the first step, because like, I don't know what the next thing is for everybody, and I can't promise things will get better. But what I can promise is like, we're in it together, and maybe we can figure it out together too.
So beautiful. This has been so insightful. I highly recommend everybody go out and get Steve's book because, again, it's really honest and it's so needed because we're all going to go through this at some point if we're not going through it right now. But I want to go back to that sweet 2023 version of you and you today. And I'm wondering if the 2023 version of you and the 2026 version of you were standing in the same room looking at each other. What do you think he would say to you today and why?
What the 2023 version would say to me?
Mm-hmm.
Like he would say, like, "Oh, the gray hairs on the side of your head are getting a little more gray, huh, pal?" I think he would probably say something like that to start, and then I would make fun of him back, and we would get that banter going pretty awkwardly very quickly, and then he would probably say like, "Oh, like that's the book you ended up writing. Like this title is different than the one I started with. It was going to be something different." And I think he would look at the book and he would see where I'm at now in my life. I think he'd be really proud of me, and be hopeful for that future. Like I would almost not want to. We're gonna erase his memory of meeting me because I don't want to influence him in any way, because I think he had to go through these last few years to create what he did and end up where I am today. So I'm appreciative of what he went through and how he got there. And I think 2023 would also say like, man, dude, you did it. Like, I hope you're happy. And I hope you realize like you made it. You know, it's really easy to think like, oh, it has to sell this number of copies or it must do this or that in order for this to have been worth it. And I think like if I allow myself to believe it, like I've already made it. I got paid to write this really great book that I think will help a lot of people. And I am surrounded by friends and family to bring it into the world, and hopefully it will help them. Like I'm here, I did it, and I'm excited to see what's next. But like I have relinquished control of what the future might bring for me, and I'm perfectly content with that.
It's awesome. And if anything, what would you say to 2023 version of you and why?
I don't know if I would say anything, to be honest. I don't want to influence him. Like I deep down, I know he's going to figure it out. And, I don't think I would ask him to do anything differently. I think he has to go through those dark nights. You said, dark nights of the soul of like, am I going to get through this? Is this going to make, like, I don't want to give him any false hope, or rather unreasonable hope or toxic positivity, any of that, and instead just let him do his thing, because it got me back here. And again, I don't know what the future may bring. I know there is a lot more hardship coming in the future and challenges that will catch me off guard. And hopefully through all of this, it's giving me the resilience that I can then use to tread water for as long as it takes, whenever the next thing is going to happen. And in the meantime, like I'm here now, I can meditate without that streak. And if I have to throw up, I will throw up in the bathroom on the boat and not up over the side of it.
If you take one thing away from this conversation, please let it be that. Steve, you are delightful. Thank you for being such a genuine, authentic voice out in the world and for helping people trust themselves more. I think that's what all great teachers, writers, artists do, is they share their experience and give people tools to learn better self-trust and self-knowledge. Your book does exactly that. That's what you do with your life and your career. And I'm grateful that we had this time together.
This was very enjoyable. Certainly the most I've talked about puke so far on a podcast. So that's awesome. And it was delightful. Like, thank you for the opportunity. I love like nerding out about the creative process. Like, sign me up. We could go for another 3 hours. I'm so thankful for the chance.
Oh my gosh. Me too. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
Okay, there you have it. My conversation with the brilliant Steve Kamb. One of my greatest takeaways from this conversation is sometimes the goal isn't to win or to completely catapult yourself forward. The best way to make progress is actually just to stay afloat. I think so many of us spend our lives believing that if we're not constantly moving forward, producing, achieving, we're somehow failing. But Steve reminded me, and hopefully you, that there are seasons in life where treading water is an accomplishment and is the best way forward. I hope this episode gave you permission to stop measuring yourself solely by your productivity and what society wants of you, and start giving yourself credit for being resilient and for honoring what you want and need and know. Please go follow Steve at Steve Kamb and pick up his fantastic new book, How to Try Again, wherever good books are found. You can also check out his company at nerdfitness.com. If this episode resonated with you, send it to a fellow creative, share it on socials, and give us a rating and review on Apple and a rating on Spotify. Also, leave a comment on this episode on Spotify. Every little piece of engagement helps and teaches us how to make the show better for you. You can find us at Unleash Your Inner Creative and LoGrasso on Instagram and all social media. Unleash Your Inner Creative is executive produced and hosted by me, LoGrasso. Edited by Blondell Garcon with theme music by Liz Fohl. I love you and I believe in you. Talk with you next week.